the really big theme that a lot of us focus on is just feels somewhat selfish, right? To
Mm,
take care of ourselves. We don't want to take care of ourselves because we want to kind of help other people. But the reality is if we do not take care of self, we will have nothing to give to other people.
mm.
And so once I kind of really could intellectually understand that, I would no longer felt guilty taking time off for myself. So the idea is not selfish, it's self-care.
What if you were able to sit down for lunch with some of the greatest leaders in the world? What would you ask? What would they say? Welcome to the Lynch with a Leader podcast, where you're invited to join us in learning the spiritual principles behind big success. Here's your host, Mike Linch.
I think all of us battle the tension of trying to build a great culture while get the best out of everybody who works with us and around us. And sometimes those things can battle against each other. Today in episode 248, we get to sit down with Karyn Gordon and talk to Dr. Gordon again about how to do this in today's society. If I've never met you before, my name is Mike, and it is my honor to be on this leadership journey with you as we're all seeking to be the leaders that we were created to be in the spaces and places that God has put us. Well, I love sitting with Dr. Karyn Gordon. Number one, I learned something every time. Our team is about to finish her book, The Three Chairs. Our leadership team's been walking through that book, and it has been so good for us, stretching us and pushing us. And in today's episode, we really drill down on employee engagement and building a strong culture. And I believe the two of those have to work together. And Dr. Gordon has a front row seat to some of the greatest companies in the world as she goes in behind the scenes and begins to help them do just that. Hiring somebody with our logo does not make them a part of the culture, right? That's not how you build culture. Today, Dr. Gordon really peels back the covers and helps us see all the ways we can work towards this goal. I think it's going to be so good. And she is just, every time she talks, you just grow. And I think it's going to be that way for you today. So I don't know whether you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, you're watching on YouTube, wherever you are, do leave a like, subscribe. That helps us and helps others find their way to us. Now, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to pull out something to write with, and I want you to pull out a way to take notes because this one's chock full of good ones. So pull up a chair and listen in to my conversation with Dr. Karyn Gordon. Well, Dr. Gordon, thank you so much for joining me again on this episode of Lynch with a Leader. It is always so fun to have you.
Well, I love coming on your podcast, Mike. So I will come anytime you ask.
Well, you are in the Mount Rushmore of favorite people. You always bring so much to the table. You always have so many great insights. And I was telling you, our team is walking through your book, The Three Chairs, and we finished chapter 10 yesterday. We're about to go to the chapter we're going to talk about. As you now have lived in that content for a couple years, how true are you finding the three chairs to be? And how is it? I know it was a great concept when you wrote about it and you spoke about it, but now that you're living it out, how
Yeah.
true are you finding it to be?
Oh my goodness. I think the three chairs, it's gonna outlive me a long time. Like the
Mm,
concept is just so simple, right? It's so simple. I mean, I designed the three chairs. I came up with the concept, almost over 25 years ago. And you think about 25 years ago, there was no internet, there was no social media.
wow.
I wasn't married, I had no kids, and it's amazing to kind of see how the three chairs really is timeless. Like it is a
Yep.
timeless. You could use the three chairs and I've had pastors do this. I don't know if I told you this, Mike, before, but I've had pastors before where they actually use the three chairs and they think about the characters in the Bible and you can
Mm,
see where different characters are in the Bible and which chair they're actually sitting in. So I really do think that the three chairs it wasn't my idea. I really think it was like a divine idea that was given to me. I just happened to be the messenger of it. So I think it's gonna live on a long time. But I think right now with so much uncertainty,
mm,
economically, politically, there's just so much much upheaval that's going on right now globally. I think it's a really, really important thing that all of us can really use to lean in and kind of give us some certainty and help us understand ourselves, but also those around us with where people actually sit and why they actually respond in certain ways. So I think it can give a lot of clarity.
Well, I love the book because it's so personal, but yet there's a corporate piece of it too.
Right.
And you spend the last chapter talking about driving employee productivity and building culture. Why do you feel like one of the roles of a leader is to get the most out of their teams? Why is it just sort of a piece of leadership that a leader can bring the best out of their teams?
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why is because, as you know, we can only do so much ourselves. So we
Mm,
kind of go, we can have a vision, but if it's just us doing the vision, we're going to kind of reach a limit on how far we can really take it. If we really want to expand our vision, we have to bring other people to the table to help us. Cascade that vision. I mean, Jesus himself. I mean, he was individual, but he rallied the
mm,
troops and his people to cascade his vision. So as leaders, if we've got a vision that we really think is that important and we want to really kind of share it with the world, the only way we're going to do that is to kind of bring other people to the table. And so that is the power of team. And then how do you engage your team? How do you inspire your team? And so the reason that team is so powerful and culture is so powerful is because emotions are very contagious. So
mm,
we've all kind of been part of a team that the leader was kind of the person who had a title of leadership, but they weren't charismatic. Maybe their energy was pretty low, is pretty flat. They're kind of they're burned out, they're stressed out. We feel that energy from a leader. And so the emotions are incredibly contagious. And so it's really important when we think about culture and as a leader, it's really to take care of our own energy and our own emotion management so that we can really inspire and take care of our team and really think about what do I need to do as a leader to really awaken the energy and the
mm.
culture of my team.
It's so
So,
interesting because you can get so focused in as a leader on yourself
yeah,
because I think we all need to work on ourselves, but
yeah.
you hold that dual role of getting the most out of me while I'm getting the most out of others. How have you done that as a leader? How have you found that art of that balance of being
Mhm.
self-focused in a right way,
Right.
but also being others focused?
I think it's an ongoing issue, certainly for myself, and I would say for a lot of leaders. I see this a lot with women leaders, for example, that a lot of us, I run a whole women's entrepreneur mastermind, and that's a really big theme that a lot of us focus on is just, it feels somewhat selfish, right? To
Mm,
take care of ourselves. We don't want to take care of ourselves because we want to kind of help other people. I see this a lot in a lot of health professionals that I work with in teams where they kind of go into the field because they care so much about other people. But the reality is if we do not take care of self, we will have nothing to give to other people.
mm,
And so once I kind of really could intellectually understand that, I would no longer felt guilty taking time off for myself. So the idea is not selfish, it's self-care, and there is a
mm.
difference. And for anybody who is a believer, I love looking again at scripture. You can kind of read all these beautiful stories. And one of my favorite stories is when Jesus, with all the people around him, and he's like, I need to go and pray by myself. And to me, it's a great example. There was so much need.
Yep.
So many people kind of wanted him, but he realized that if he did not take care of self, he had nothing to give. So, for anybody who struggles with self, it's going to be selfish if I take care of myself. You just remember what the purpose is I'm going to take care of self so that I have more to give and actually to serve to other people. And so it's not, I'm going to, take care of myself so I can be all selfish. No, the intent is to fill up my bucket so actually I can kind of give to other people. And once we do that, doesn't the guilt kind of evaporates. There's no guilt. There's no
Mm,
guilt when we think that. So it's a really important concept for leaders. And the whole, as you've been kind of going through the book, there's the five different kind of core skills of being in that
yep.
middle chair and that's where when we really focus on the mindset and we focus on setting boundaries and we focus on in terms of our own emotion management, our productivity can kind of go up and our stress
Mm.
can come down. And that's how everything is so interconnected with the three chairs.
That's so good. And you close with talking about the 6 P's of engagement. And
Yes.
I want to take 2 or 3 of them because
Yeah.
I think they are so good. And the first one is a word we hear all the time, purpose.
Mhm.
How does a leader really hone in on what their purpose is, what they were created for, and in turn, make sure the organization is living on purpose. How do you do that? How does a leader start? We hear purpose all the time. You got to know your why. Start with your why. If
Right,
you were sitting
right,
down across from a leader right now,
right.
how would you get them started in that process?
It's usually for the purpose. It's usually a gut reaction. It's usually a lot of times I'll just give them a pen and paper saying, I want you to think about your purpose. I want you to think about your why and just what are the first things that kind of come to you. And just don't think about it too much. Just take your pen and paper and start writing what actually kind of bubbles up. I really believe we all have a sense of purpose. We're all created with purpose. I think every single one of us listening to this right now, all of us have a sense of purpose. The question is, do we know what that purpose is and are we living accordingly? We have a retreat that we actually lead couples through. And actually, the 6 Ps, it's interesting that you should say this because I was actually just going over my notes actually yesterday about this. It's the exercise. I'm actually getting couples to do the 6 P exercise as a couple.
Wow.
So I get couples to do their 6 Ps, and this particular marriage retreat is all mostly for business leaders, and so they love that because it's like, okay, what's my purpose in my marriage and my family, but what's also my purpose in my business, and all of a sudden where there's kind of continuity. And a lot of times people, their sense of purpose can be quite similar. It can be actually similar, very similar in terms of their personal life as well, actually their business life. But usually it is their why. It is and then sometimes people's purpose from a faith perspective it can be much more simplistic. It can be like to have my purpose is have a really solid relationship with God. That could be my purpose, right? So I have other people, my purpose for this year, when we're doing like 6 Ps, I have a lot of people, my purpose is to learn to forgive.
Mm.
My purpose is to learn to be more grateful. My purpose is to really focus in terms of being more present with my family. And so we can have an overarching purpose, but I actually really encourage people to think about what are your purpose goals? What are things that you could really focus in on? One of our purpose goals, so the 6 Ps, you can do it in multiple places. You can do it as a business. You can do it as a couple. You can do it as an individual. You can teach to your children. So we've had our own boys do the 6 P exercise since they were, I don't know, grade 4, grade 5 is when they started. And so one of our 6 P goals as a family that we've actually also done with the boys is to read the Bible from start to finish by the time they finish high school.
Wow.
So let me tell you, do you know where we are right now, Mike? Let me tell you, we just wrapped up 2 Corinthians and we've got about 6 weeks to go. So
You're moving.
we are moving. I said to them, I'm like, we do 5 chapters a night. It's going to take us through the finish line. And we've been working on this. We started actually during COVID. We actually started that. And so because, our purpose goal is that our boys know God, love God, right? Know God, love God. That's kind of our focus. So I thought, you know what? I want them to know the Bible inside and out. I want them to understand how all the stories kind of fit together. As a parent, we can't control what faith they have or don't have, but we certainly can control the boundaries and things that we actually can try to encourage that. And so because we have built this as one of our habits, that's one of our purpose goals, to give an example. Okay. And it's actually quite neat to read it from start to finish.
Yeah.
We started in Proverbs, which is Proverbs is my favorite book of the Bible. So Proverbs is my favorite. And then the boys got into it. So, because it's all about decision making and it's all about learning to sit in the middle chair. Okay.
That's
Proverbs is
right.
filled on quotes about how do you sit in the middle chair. And then one of our sons suggests, well, why don't we kind of do it start to finish? And so that for us, from a very practical perspective, is one of our purpose goals. And they got into it. So it's a really great exercise for everybody listening, thinking about what do I want my purpose goals. It really speaks and pulls at that spiritual part of us. What do I really want to focus in on for this particular year? And it gives good food for thought.
You make a statement in there. All organizations start with why, but only the great ones keep their why clear year after year. How do you even do that personally where you don't go, okay, we're going to do this, and then by June, it's, what did I talk about in January? I don't even remember what we said. How do you keep that in front of your boys? How do you keep that in front of your marriage?
Yeah. So really great question. So what we do, we have cadences. I'm really big. So at our in our leadership academy, we teach all kinds of different courses on how do professionals do this, how do businesses do this, and how you actually can do this in your marriage. And so but the one of the big principles we teach is cadences and rhythms.
Mm.
So we need to have things that are built into our annual or quarterly or weekly or daily, because without it, it's like one more thing to do. And then we get into decision fatigue. So for example, how do we do it on a marriage perspective? My husband and I do our 6P exercise in January every single year. We collectively, we do our own individual 6Ps. We do it as collectively as a couple. And then we will do, once we have them figured out, then we type them out. I put it in, I've got a little journal. Usually I have it with me actually in my office, but I must have left it in the other room. I have it in a little journal. So I carry all my 6Ps in this little journal, and it's a very small little journal, and it goes in my purse usually everywhere I go. So if I'm like sitting in the car waiting for my boys for something, I can pull it out and I can look at it.
Mm.
You have to
Mm.
know what it is, write it down, and have it in a place where you can actually look at it. And then my husband and I, we do quarterly meetings based on how are we doing according to our 6Ps. So there's now accountability to it. We know what the 6Ps are. How are we doing according to these 6Ps? What are the decisions we're going to say yes to, we're going to say no to? With our boys, we have our boys do the 6P exercise usually in September at the beginning of a school year. They do the same thing. They print it, and their 6Ps is on the fridge. And you know what? So we have a newsletter. For anybody who likes this content, you can just sign up for a newsletter. It's
Yep.
www.dkleadership.org. And I'm going to share this with our email list, because it's really just this past week, my one son, he got a couple of his goals this past year, and I saw him and he's at the fridge and he's highlighting some of
Mm.
his goals. So every time they're at that fridge, they're looking at their 6Ps, they're looking at their goals, they're looking at what they're going to say yes to. And they've done so much research on one of the best ways to build confidence is by setting clear goals.
That's right.
Right. And so when you have clarity about what the goal is and you're looking at it every single day, and now you can kind of start checking things off on that list, it gives incredible amount of agency and in terms of confidence. So it's a fabulous tool that parents could be using as well as business leaders actually.
That's so good, and especially with teenage boys, to put it on the refrigerator because they're
Yeah,
at the refrigerator a lot
exactly.
eating.
They love
That's right.
food. It's all about food. Anything you can do to kind of put food with the goal. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
it. When they do their homework, I'll often say, I'm like, guys, do you want me to like give you a snack, some, fruit popcorn? Oh, mom, that'd be great. Give boys their food. And like all of a sudden you piggyback two things. And it's like, yeah, they don't often say no to food for sure.
That's so good. One of the other P's, and I wanted to sit on this one for a second because I think it's so applicable to leaders, being businesses, churches, profits, is professional growth. Why is it easy to go? All right, I'm gonna play a business owner. Why
Yeah.
is it easy to say, I'm giving them a job? Just do your job. That's enough. Pay them.
Yeah.
Why am I responsible for helping them grow professionally? What would you say to that leader?
So what I would say is really very critical. The organizational health of any business, any system is to have a growth mindset. Okay. And to me, professional growth is about making sure that you are helping your team to have a growth mindset. So whether or not that is reading books like The Three Chairs or lots of great other books, you're listening to podcasts, you're doing lunch and learns, there's lots of different ways you can do it. And so when people say, well, we don't have time, it's like, that's an excuse. You prioritize with what's important. So you really want to make sure that you're encouraging your team to be always growing and learning, growing and learning. The
Mhm.
great businesses constantly evolving. They're constantly reiterating. They're constantly looking at the market. What's changing? What's needing? What do people actually need? If we have a mindset where it's very fixed and we're not open, business, or they're going to have a problem because we've never seen more change than we're actually happening right now. And it's really the companies that we're working with that are doing a phenomenal job is that they are constantly, they're very agile. Agility is a critical piece in organizational health. And so you want to make sure that you're encouraging professional growth and you're also tapping into what your team wants, because we see this a lot with the younger generations. When I first started doing training in businesses, it was on helping business leaders understand the multi-generations. That's kind of where I started. And man, if you want to kind of retain your talent, the young people, they really want to know, what are opportunities for me
That's
here,
right.
And if I don't see opportunities, I might want to be looking elsewhere. So it's going to have a massive impact in terms of retention and engagement for sure. So it's something that is when people kind of really understand the whole picture and why it's actually so important, it's really critical. And then the other thing, really quick, Mike, I was going to say, when we talk about, it's interesting, the six P's, I created the six P's. I can't remember if I said this in the book or not, but it's one of our companies from California. And I done an all day training with our management team on what is the ideal best place to work. Okay. So
Mm.
just tell me with what it is that you really, what would it be? And I had them write them all on these sticky notes. Okay. And there was about 100 people. And so I said, just think of all the different places, like what are the things you're looking for when you think of a great place to work? And so they put all these sticky notes and they put up on the board. And then I looked at the board. As I'm looking at the board, a little bit kind of like the three chairs, I saw this pattern. Out of that pattern, I saw the six P's that I realized that when team members have these six things, they are more engaged. And when they're more engaged in the workplace, they're more energized. And when
Mm.
they're more energized, all of a sudden it kind of feeds this whole contagious movement that's happening within a culture. So the six P's really make a difference when leaders actually understand them and prioritize them. And if you look at the best places to work, you'll see kind of, in many ways, the six P's kind of weaved into it. But it's the six P's really helps to drive a person's engagement at the workplace. But like I said, you can apply it to marriages and you can apply it to your kids as well.
You use a statistic in that 94% would stay longer if they were invested in. And I don't even think it's a big investment. I think even the small things like you're talking about, little
Yep.
lunch and learns, listen to a podcast, a master class. There's
Yeah.
so many things. Why are leaders afraid to do that? Do you find some executive level leaders, some C-suites that are going, I don't know if I really want to get into that. What have you found that to be true or not true?
I think a lot of times I think a lot of leaders think, well, that's an HR issue. That's an
Mm.
HR issue. I don't have time for that. I need to focus on like finding new clients or strategic relationships, or it almost feels a little bit it feels a little bit above them or sort of beneath them, I guess. So I think that's kind of part of it. They don't really and then for some, they just don't know how to like do it.
Mm.
Again, going back to cadences and rhythms, if you really think about, if you want to be a great place to work, you want to have great engagement, you want to have great retention, you want to be having a great team, then really prioritizing your employees and the engagement needs to be one of your three top objectives, not an afterthought, not an HR issue, that it's embedded right into your three core objectives as a business. And then in that, you can actually then start doing whether it's like monthly lunch and learn. We've got our Leadership Academy. A lot of companies will use that in terms of their own lunch and learns, but there's lots of other great programs kind of out there as well. And then just figuring out what is going to be your learning resource so that it's easy. It's not kind of like, okay, great. Now what do I have to do to think about it? Like
Yep.
we have to make this easy. There's a rhythm to it. There's like, so a lot of companies actually will use our academy, and that's what they do. They either do a monthly lunch and learn. Last Friday of every month, they do potluck. God, in our academy, we have all the videos and the
Yep.
discussion questions and the handouts and everything. And then other companies, they'll do it kind of quarterly. You can kind of design your kind of curriculum about what do I want my people to learn. So it can be very strategic. I think it has to be, so we have to kind of understand why it's important
Yep.
and what's the easiest, time efficient, most cost effective way actually to do it.
The final P we're going to hit today is play. I think it's the
Yeah.
one that I think every organization looks at that
Yeah.
and says,
Yeah.
we're trying to earn a profit.
Yeah.
Talk about play and why that's so vital for a thriving company to have.
Yeah. So play is so important. First of all, it's an amazing way to reduce stress. Okay.
Yep.
So there's the physical impact that actually happens when we actually are laughing and we're playing is incredible. And I talk about that in the book. So it's really, really great in terms of reducing stress. It's amazing for engagement. It's amazing for retention. So you want to think about really simple ways to make sure that you're keeping your top players, your team players. Just ask yourself, how much are you playing? How much are you laughing? And it doesn't have to be like this big thing. We can make things like really quite easy. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting, Mike. I was talking about this with our boys recently because they're very curious about kind of the work that we do. And I was explaining to them about how we teach the six P's to businesses. And my one son, he said, "Mom, why do adults have to like the play part? Like, why is that like so hard for them?" Like,
Yeah.
I said, because for a lot of adults, we forget to play. It's
That's right.
amazing of how many executives, they don't have any hobbies. They don't do any play. It's just like work, work, work. And then they wonder why they're like burning out and their marriage is like, awful. Playing is so critical. It's like that type of self-care.
Mm.
The one of my keynotes I do is on stress management. And one of the things I try to describe, it's like productivity and performance is like a big wave. So an ocean kind of goes out and then it comes back in. Activity and performance. If you study the signs of high performance, and I talk about this in the book, it's kind of like the wave is being pushed out. As we're performing, we're focusing, we're saying yes to our priorities, we're saying no to things that are not important, we're delegating, and then the wave comes back in, and that's kind of that self-care. That's what play is.
Mm.
Play is an example for us to kind of like exhale. Even with our boys and our time management, we try to encourage them to do their homework first, and then you play after. You talk about Proverbs. Proverb is huge about self-discipline.
Yep.
Oh, it's huge about self-discipline, like really focus on your work and then enjoy life, like exhale, and so I think it's a really important piece. And a lot of leaders and a lot of parents, they don't prioritize it because it feels like a waste of time. But once they structure it properly, they get hooked on it, and it's been really cool just as a parent of teenagers, we have really been focused on teaching our boys. If there's one skill, it's like faith. And the second one I'd say is self-discipline. If kids are
That's
self-disciplined,
so
they're
true, man.
if you are developing and honing that skill of self-discipline, everything else starts falling into place because you're not allowing your emotions to control and make your decisions. You've kind of got control. You've got that self-control that scripture talks about so much. So the play part is really important, but we got to make sure that we get our work done first.
At the end of the day, and our last question of the day, at the end of the day, when I don't believe anything happens by accident. I believe God gives people the gifts, abilities, and skills that he does. I believe he puts them in the space and place he wants them. What do you think God ultimately wants from every leader when I was teaching this morning on the life of Esther to a group of coaches in the community. When God put Esther there, he put her there for a specific time, for a specific thing, and for a specific reason. What do you think God ultimately wants out of every leader from putting them where he puts them?
It's a really good question, Mike. And I would say, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, but what really is their purpose. Esther had she was created for, as you said, a very specific time in history. She had a very specific purpose. And thankfully, she was very aware of that and was able to lean in and fulfill her purpose. And I think that's why it's so important that we all really figure out what is our purpose and are we making decisions that is in alignment with our purpose. I love, my purpose is to help people, period. And somebody was asking me recently, I love design. If people follow me on Instagram, you'll see that sometimes I'll post different things on interior design. I love interior design, but I learned very quickly that was, as much as I love it, that's not my purpose. It is a hobby that God gave to me, but my purpose is to help people. And so that's why I have made decisions and the work that I do and the books that I read and all of that. And just like you have a very clear purpose. And so I think it's really figuring out what is my and for people listening, if you don't know, you pray about it. God will reveal it. But I don't know about you. I was really felt like I heard my purpose in the quietness in the middle of the night when I would be meditating and praying. And then I heard the very loud whisper. So to me, that's when, and I believe every one of us has it, but a lot of times we don't listen. We don't take the time to really listen for it.
Thank you for listening to the Lynch with a Leader podcast with your host, Mike Linch. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help more people hear it by subscribing and leaving a review wherever you may be listening. For full episode notes and more spiritual leadership resources, visit MikeLynch.com.